The world received the Resident Evil 3 remake in 2020, and it is a gaming gold star, a nostalgic RPG to the face, a masterful horror show with a violent menace of an antagonist, and it is all polished off in Capcom's glorious high-def RE engine, albeit it only lasts for 6 hours. Now before you think I'm here to dig it out more, let me say it's one of my standout games of the year. Similar to Resident Evil 2, it has carried over the original's best assets, a well-woven detective against the odd story, the cheeky and somewhat brazen cheesy one-liners, and the freakish monsters and jump scares that now in modern day graphics have the ability to make your body leave its skeleton for a brief second. It was a genuine and beautifully paced trip down memory lane that kept me glued to the screen until I stopped for breath. It's just a shame that that breath came with the credits. Now I appreciate recreating a game that was only approximately 10 hours long doesn't gratify a Rockstar Games style 50 hours story, but I recall the original being longer, or at least had more. The big difference lies in that the remake takes a more action orientated role, not the press circle to punch a boulder style action game that Resi 6 made us laugh at, but more a fluid, high tempo, entertaining explosion with just a sprinkle of classic Resident Evil mechanics, a hybrid genre. With a 16-year gap in between me experiencing these games, I used the internet and not my brain to gloss over what was missing. The main chunk of content lies in key areas such as the clock tower and the graveyard, and of course many puzzles. Now puzzles have always been what made Resident Evil tantalising. All them adolescent brains and pre-internet gamers scratching at their skull until a lightbulb moment saves the day. The lack of puzzles is certainly notable in Resident Evil 3, but the way the remake plays it isn't missed with great pain. As for locations like the clock tower and graveyard, these missing areas feel like exactly what made the remake experience so short. The clock tower made an appearance, but it was only there for you to plant mine bombs on to wallop that skin chemical fuck up nemesis. As for the graveyard, nowhere to be seen. Not to mention the Gravedigger boss fight that made pre-teens all around the world terrified of slugs for a week. Parts of the game like the substation and hospital deserve kudos at the very least, and a special mention goes to the rising star Tyrell Patrick, Carlos's chief in whip and computer whiz. His character gets much more screen time, which helps create a more rounded and, spoilers here, terribly sad part of the story witnessing his death. I played this game 7 months after release, so glitches and issues were non-existent. I always say you can't really judge a game review on early glitches prior to patches, unless of course it's cyberpunk-esque game breaking. The recreation of Raccoon City was said to be more realistic in its layout, and the interconnecting streets seem to back this up. It may only be items and locks you can interact with, but the city feels so alive and so troubling at every corner. Nemesis starts the game strong. In fact, so strong I nearly burst blood vessels screaming so loud during his opening soiree. Eventually, he is demoted to storyline sections and boss fights. The fights themselves do a good job at increasing the pressure and action each time that perv stalker shows up, but by the curtain call, I felt as though I'd had all the fights I could muster with that big ugly bastard. The dome fight where Nemesis runs round like a dog on heat waiting for you to electrocute him was clearly a miss, but it all paid off getting to blow him up with the most Japanese game weapon ever made. The easy to carry, easy to manage the recoil railgun. And there we have it, a retrospective look at the super sweet, super short Resident Evil 3 remake. As an early thought, it felt as though Capcom were warming us with Resident Evil 2 and Mr. X, but ultimately we already got the classic experience we craved in the last instalment. Instead, we got an encore that did blow all our little horror minds, be it like losing your virginity, blink and it's gone, but worth every penny. Let's pray to Shinji Mikami that Resident Evil 4 gets the green light and caps off the remake success.